When you put all the pieces together of what we're seeing and you pair that with the investments that the president is making all across the country, game-changing investments in infrastructure, in advancing new technologies, in advancing clean energy, what you see is an economy that is delivering now, having recovered from the pandemic, but one where we're making those game-changing investments that are going to drive productivity, growth, and jobs for years to come. And so, given just how strong these reports are, this all looks very good. One statistic that really jumped out to us as we were looking at the data is that the new investment in the construction of private manufacturing facilities, something that we've been watching closely because those are the kinds of investments that the president is trying to induce through his Investing in America agenda. You are seeing that the contribution of that to growth is higher than it's been going back to 1959, so that investment continues to fan out across the country. And of course that's leading to an uptick in construction jobs now, but that'll lead to a shift in other kinds of jobs in years to come.
I know part of your job is to bring calm and balance to the conversation, Heather Boushey, and you're awfully good at that. But as I look at the stock market, as I consider the data here, you're not a member of the political apparatus at the White House, but is it not time to start jumping up and down a little bit more to get this message across to the American people?
Well, we here at the White House are working hard every day to communicate the strength of this economy, how the president has been building an economy from the middle out. So many of my colleagues, myself, traveling the country, talking to folks like you, this has been a tough road, right? The president came into office in the middle of a pandemic recession. And then, of course, we had Putin's unprovoked war in the Ukraine that upended global energy prices. And there was a lot of uncertainty. How fast could we recover? Would supply chains renormalize? Would we see, the upending of energy prices last for a long time? And now we really see over the past year that all of those things have come back together. They've gotten under control, and the strength of the economy, the underlying strength, is really starting to shine.
We're talking with Heather Boushey live from the White House on Balance of Power today. Important news from the administration, Heather, is the president halting the approval of new licenses to export LNG, the liquefied natural gas, while it scrutinizes the impact that this would have and these shipments would have on climate change. What level of concern do you have here to potentially disrupt already fragile energy markets in Europe?
Well, this is a very important issue. Let me start by noting that the president from day one has had a whole of government approach to addressing climate change, and core to that has been making the investments we need to make to put the United States on the leading edge of investing in clean energy technologies and the capacity to produce those here in the United States and to shore up that global process there. Now, what we see in these exports is that right now the United States is the world's #1 exporter of LNG, and we know that over the next decade that's actually predicted to double. And we've been working very closely and feel confident that we have enough to be able to assure our allies that we'll be able to continue to play this really important role. But at the same time, we need to make sure that we, like other countries, are doing what we can do to address the climate change challenges. You started this segment by noting that it's over 70 degrees here in DC in the middle of January, and we are all sort of struggling with the increasing physical damages of climate change and the need to make these investments, as the president is doing, in spurring those clean energy investments.
Okay. Are you able to tell our allies how long this pause might last?
I am not able to say that now.
Weeks, not months? There's no sense of how long a review like that would take, and I'm not trying to push this too far, Heather. I don't know if there's a presumption of how long something like that might need to take.
This is being carefully considered, and conversations are ongoing.
I have to ask you as well about what's been happening in the Red Sea. This is, of course, a major issue for the administration, and we've certainly seen the Pentagon get involved here in trying to secure shipments through the Red Sea following a series of attacks from Houthi rebels in Yemen. At what point do you grow concerned about the impact on supply chain and prices?
Well, this is something we have been tracking since the beginning. We've also been, of course, looking at, how El Nino and droughts have been affecting the Panama Canal. So we, of course, in this administration have been very concerned about supply chains and global shipping. As we have looked at this, given what shippers have been doing, being able to move their transportation to other ways of getting around the world, that does take a little bit more time and it does cost a little bit more. But our assessment is that when it comes to the U.S. consumer, we do not expect to see a large price shock. And I also just want to note that we don't expect to see anything like what we saw during the pandemic with those global supply chain challenges. Yeah. That's not to underestimate this, but at this point, it looks like the effects for the consumer will be limited.
Well, that's encouraging.
But we will continue to monitor. We will continue to monitor it. Yeah.
Sure, and I realize this is a fluid situation, Heather. What does the CEA look at? How does the council deal with something like this in your tracking? What indicators are you watching?
Well, we're looking at the geopolitical situation. We're looking at what kinds of goods are transported around the world and where that get to the American consumer, and what it would mean to take longer routes, and what the estimated impact would be of those costs of doing so, and how long and how much additional time that would take to get goods to the consumer.
Yeah. Well, with energy prices in mind, I'll ask you lastly if that's the wild card for you right now. We've seen crude oil pop up a bit over the past couple of weeks based on what we're watching in the Middle East, and no real disruption here, it seems, in terms of supply shock, but everyone's kind of on edge waiting for something to happen. Is that your wild card? Is that what keeps you up at night right now?
There are so many wild cards that keep me up at night, because it is literally my job to worry about these things for the president with my colleagues.
Yeah.
So certainly this is something that we are always watching closely. I mean, let me just note that this is one of the core reasons that I think that the president's investments in clean energy are so economically important. Once we can make those investments, we will be able to extricate ourselves from this very volatile global energy prices and provide consumers with more stable access with more stable prices. For now, we continue to monitor the situation closely.